What's up, tube? As you can see, it's cold out because I have a fire going, and it's hard to believe it was 70 some degrees yesterday and it's raining, sleeting, snowing, and right around 30 degrees today. Nonetheless, I'm toasty. So I wanted to start a new video series called Why'd I Do That? And what I want to dig into is a bunch of the systems and builds on the rig and what my thought process was behind installing them. And after using this thing on the road for the last year or so, almost a year and a half now, my likes, dislikes, would I do things different, stuff like that. So for my first video, we're going to talk about something that was a decision early on, and I'll go into the points why, and it's my composting toilet. So let's go take a look at that. So I'm taking a break from all of my fiberglass panels and trim that I have been putting up because it's just too cold, and not having the garage door open chokes me out in a matter of about 5 cuts. So here's the composting toilet. So the question is, how does this thing really work? Well, if you can see back here, I have a hose connected to a fan that is powered by 12 volt that draws the air out of this guy from the other side, right there. And it does an amazing job of keeping any smells that this thing has, which are minimal anyway, out of the bathroom. And it runs 24/7. It pulls about an amp at 12 volts, and that's about nothing. So it works really well. So much like a regular toilet, you can either sit down or stand up. They recommend that you sit down all the time, and I know that may be a shocker for a bunch of guys out there, but honestly, I bet you I sit down maybe 20% of the time, and I'll actually stand up and do my best to aim as best I can. And if there's a little splatter, I just take this guy, spray it down, and if I have to wipe it down and throw that out, so be it. It's better than undressing halfway. I know, ladies, you do it all the time. You're used to it, we're not. So I deal with the consequences. So it has 2 areas. There's an area right here, which is the solids, and I'll open that in a second. And there's an area right here where the liquids go. And actually, if the liquids get in there, they're actually directed into here, which is the liquids tank. And I'll show you how that comes out in a second. To get the solids to go where they have to go, all you do is you just, before you sit down, obviously, you push that lever, that little guy's open, you do your business, and worst case scenario, if you have to spray it down with that guy and wipe a little bit with this guy, that is about the worst of it. This is just 50% vinegar and water, 50% water, and I use that every time I go. Number 1, number 2, doesn't matter. I spray this thing down every single time. I don't always wipe it down if I'm just peeing in this thing, but if I make a mess, I'll wipe it down. So speaking of making a mess, when your solids go into the lower bin, when you're done, you just close the flap, and you come over here and you spin that guy 3 full times around, and that mixes everything in the composting bin, and it really does a great job. The only thing that's gonna jack with you a little bit is the amount of toilet paper you use. And I don't know if you can see that or not, it's pretty thin. That's RV toilet paper, septic safe toilet paper, same thing. It is quite a bit thinner than your Charmin extra super delicious mighty strong toilet paper, whatever it is. The more toilet paper you put in there, the more frequently you're gonna have to change this thing, because the toilet paper just kind of balls up, unless it sits there for a long time and there's a high moisture content. It balls up and takes up space. So I minimize the amount of toilet paper I put into the solids bin. The way I do that is when things are just about done, I'll take the last little bit of toilet paper and throw it in the trash can. I know this all sounds like it's kind of ew, but it's no worse than wiping your butt. Honestly, you do that every day and you don't think about it. So it's the same thing. I do this every day and I don't think about it. So it's not that bad. I promise you, it's not that bad. And after dealing with a black tank in an RV for years and the smell that can come out of that thing, oh my God, it's horrible. And anybody that has an RV knows what I'm talking about. And this thing, it is incredible. Even with this, that guy open, and honestly, even with this off, I'll undo a latch on the side here. I'll undo a latch over here, and that opens this up so I can slide the lid off. Normally you'd have a little bit more space back here to get the lid a bit more vertical, but I figured out just as close as I can make it so it comes up. First things first, you got to pull that guy off and you got to pull that guy off. It just slides right off. Then you can tip up the lid, slide it off, set it wherever, and there's your bin. And yeah, I've used it and it's not perfectly clean, but again, with this thing wide open in this little bathroom space, granted the door's open behind me, there is no smell, guys. I mean, this has absolutely no smell. So that's about the most impressive thing with this composting toilet, is besides the fact you're not using water, is there is truly no smell. The only time I've even caught a whiff of anything is when the solid bin is full, and I mean like where the crank is getting hard to turn full. And then you can smell like I want to say like a peat moss, or like if you ever go into the woods in like Seattle after a rain or something, it kind of smells like just a woodsy smell. Not horrible, but you do notice it. And that's only when it gets super full. So normally, I don't take the whole top of the toilet off to change the liquids lid. Basically, you can lift the top of the toilet up, take the strap on the liquids tank, pull it out, and go dump it where you want to dump it. Be it in a public restroom, out in the woods, because it is only just pee, so it's mostly water. They send the liquids lid with a cap. Basically, all you do is you lift your lid up, throw the cap on, pull that guy out, and take it wherever you have to take it, and dump it out. And when I bring it back, I usually put a little vinegar in there, about a cup or two. What that does is that helps eliminate any smell, and honestly, that thing smells worse than that when it gets full or it's been sitting a while, which is crazy. But still not that horrible. So I'll put some vinegar in it, and as I dry, the vinegar sloshes around and kind of washes it out a little bit. And as I use it, it helps minimize the smell. So that's the liquids tank. So while this thing is open, I thought I'd talk about what actually goes into the solids bin. So there's a lot of different substrates or a lot of different materials you can use. Probably the two most popular are peat moss and coco coir. I personally use coco coir. I think it's a more environmentally friendly choice than peat moss, but to each his own. I suspect you can also use sawdust, and there are probably some other materials you can use. I know with the coco coir, you actually have to add some water to the coco coir when you first mix it in, so you use some rubber gloves or whatever. Actually, what I do is just take my shower head while it's in here, spray it down just a little bit, and it's only out of that whole bin, the agitator, when it's level across like this, I fill it to the agitator. I add some water, mix it up. I'll let it set for a little while, add some more water, mix it up. It's a few cups, maybe 2-3 cups. I don't even know. I don't measure it. I just kind of look at how dry the coco coir is, which is usually pretty dry. As I'm mixing it, and once it has a fairly good amount of moisture, I'm done adding water. And that's it. That's all you do to prep it. When you fill this thing, you fill it up to the top of the agitator when it's horizontal. Add a little liquid, mix it in, and usually let that soak in to see how it kind of takes to the medium. And then you're all set and ready to go. And obviously the liquids tank, talked about that a little bit. I usually put a little vinegar in there just to kind of help things stay cleaner, so the jug doesn't get stained too bad, which actually works pretty well. So that is how you start the process. The solids bin, all you do is I have compostable trash bags, 15-gallon trash bags that will wrap perfectly around this, and they're nice and snug, so nothing leaks out. And all you do is loosen that guy there and that guy there. This whole thing pulls up, and you just tip it upside down, obviously without the liquids tank in there, and seal up the trash bag and throw it away. And that's it. That's the end of it. So again, to put this back together, see if I can do this. Mine is a bit more challenging, but still, not because I didn't build this to go much higher than that, which I don't know if you guys can see that on the video or not. Basically, that's as high as mine goes, and then I lift this up and pull this tank out, and it's snug for sure, but I wanted a little countertop in here, and I calculated when I built this how close I could put it, and that's as close as I could put it and still be able to empty everything. So the lid goes back on, and then obviously you just reverse the process. You latch down these guys, you hook up your air tube and hook up your power, and that's it. That is how you use a composting toilet. And again, guys, I cannot emphasize how happy I am that I installed this thing. The obvious choice for not wasting water is paramount, but I'm super happy with the fact that it doesn't smell, I mean, at all. This is where we take a shower. You don't have to worry about that thing getting wet. It has a lip there that's sealed. Eventually I may run a tube out of the liquids tank under the floor into the floor drain, so that all that goes into the gray tank and I can dump it then, but that's not a big deal. I dump the liquids tank when there's two of us in here. We probably dump it every 3 days ish, and then the solids, man, 2 to 4 weeks. So I guess the big question is, would I do it differently? Would I change anything? Would I want to go back to a regular toilet? And I guess I'll answer the last question first. No way in God's green earth will I ever use a regular toilet again in my camper. And I can almost go, if I was living in an off-grid cabin someplace, I could definitely see using this and not even have to worry about running water. Would I change anything? I might give myself another inch behind it. So it's a little easier to get up, but it works fine. It's a little struggle sometimes to get the liquids tank out. And am I happy with it? Yeah, I am super happy with this thing. I wouldn't really change anything. I am super impressed with the way this thing works. The lack of odor is, I think, one of the fears most people have, and that is just non-existent. Super, super happy with this thing. I cannot say enough good things about the way it's built. It's solid. Their website is very informative. There's a lot of people in the community talking about these things. So if you guys have any questions or comments, leave them down below, and I'll do my best to answer them as best I can. Like I said, starting a new series. Hopefully this goes over well. I think the next one's going to be... So the next video in the series is going to be about this guy. My Oasis hydronic heating system. Let me tell you about this thing.